meeting. My name is Rose McKinney-James. For those of you who've not joined us in the past, and I'm delighted to have the opportunity to facilitate the meeting tonight. One of the first things that we like to do as we begin our meetings is to take a moment for a focus on safety. Walters to provide that. Also welcome those of you who are joining us that for your participation. We have some specific instructions that we'll be sharing with you as we move forward with the meeting. So welcome to the EAG, and in particular, let me welcome D'Amico for a safety moment.
D'Amico isn't here yet, Rose.
Well, then let me go back to something else I wanted to share as we gather. And that is, as of yesterday, we've completed a recognition of the National Hispanic Heritage Month. And I know a number of our members were very active in a variety of activities related to that. We are celebrating LGBTQ+ History Month. And there's also an acknowledgement of National Diversity Employment Awareness Month. And while I've exhausted all the pink that I have, I should also note that this is also National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So there's a lot going on. And for those of you who are actively engaged in the community, we have some meaningful things that require our attention. I'm not sure if D'Amico has joined, but I think we can move forward with the safety moment and at least put that slide up for members so that we have an indication of what we were focused on for today. And this is something that I think most of us think about. I'm not sure how often we actually take advantage of it, but there are actually both savings from a monetary standpoint, as well as safety considerations when it comes to our appliances. And in particular, as we move to a timeframe where we're using lithium-ion batteries, it becomes very important for us to consider our safety habits around the batteries because they can be combustible. And because we use them in our phones and our laptops and much of our tech devices, it becomes important for us to consider that. I am surprised that there are an average of 40 appliances that are considered for safety recognition from the National Fire Incident Reporting System. And there is a practical solution. And what you see on your screen is that you identify and use a power strip, because then you just have an on and off switch. So D'Amico, I do see you on screen, and I want to give you an opportunity to add your thoughts to this important safety moment. So welcome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I had issues logging on. Just wanted to make sure everyone can hear me okay?
We can hear you, thank you.
Okay, good. I found this piece very interesting because this is something I'm guilty of, is leaving, especially with the chargers, taking the cell phone off the charger, but leaving the charger still plugged in. And so this topic, when I was asked to do this, was very interesting to me as far as the facts and things that I think we should all be aware of in regards to safety, even in our own homes. Just the common lithium batteries, just alone, the fires that they can cause. And the practical solution is, I know the city that we live in here in the city of town of Steilacoom, they provide us yearly, it looks really nice too, power strips as far as, for energy efficiency and safety as well. So that's my piece I wanted to add. I know Rose has read the information, and I think it's provides information I don't think a lot of people are aware of, that, you know, the simple common appliance and charger and and cell phone, you know, can, you know, cause a fire.
Very helpful. I'm glad you brought it to our attention.
Yes.
And hopefully we'll all take advantage of that important safety moment.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's move on. Thank you again, D'Amico. If we could move to the next slide, please. We are going to have a number of updates today. One of the things that we decided might be a valuable addition to our agenda is to include an equity moment. And we're going to be doing that moving forward. And we are looking forward to the EAG helping us to inform how we think about an equity moment for these discussions. I'm going to turn to Ray Outlaw for an overview of the equity moment for today, and encourage you all to give some thought to suggestions going forward. And when we finish the equity moment, we'll go into just a quick review of our objectives for today. So welcome, Ray.
Thanks, Rose, and thank you all for being here. If you could go to the next slide, please. So if you weren't here last time, or if you don't remember, what we talked about was having an equity moment that is similar to a safety moment to kind of center us around equity and what we're trying to accomplish today. Last time we grabbed a few principles from a few bullets from your guiding principles, and I did the same thing this time, with the theme being around accountability. So tonight's agenda is going to include an update on the bill discount rate program, which is a program that you all provided feedback on maybe as much as a year ago or something like that, and has been developed with a team here at PSE through collaboration with the LIAC and members of the LIAC as well as others. And so they're coming back tonight to tell you about that program, the end product, and where it's headed next. So that's the first piece of accountability. The second is we jump into the biennial update, and Brian and Kara are going to talk to you about deepest need, which is a concept that you all have been very engaged in for much of the last couple of months. So again, our accountability to you to talk about what did we learn from those conversations, where did it lead us to, and what happens next with that information. So we grabbed some bullets that are relevant for you all to think about, and again, to help frame the conversation tonight. I think Lisa included the full guiding principles or a link to them in the latest email, so those are available to you as well. And as Rose said, this is the second time we tried this. We're trying to figure out how to make this useful to you and make it valuable to all of us. So if you have ideas, if anyone was like, hey, I want to do the equity moment next month, maybe it's more fun than the safety moment, please feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to talk with you and learn a little bit more. But this is take two of however many times it takes to get it right. So thanks for listening. Thanks, Rose.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm hoping that I'm coming through. I'm feeling a little freezing and a few issues. Please alert me if you can't hear me. Can I get a thumbs up that you can hear me? Okay. Yes. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Megan. All right. Moving on then, maybe we go to the next slide. These are my requests, and we've all seen them. We want active participation. I appreciate the respect that you give me as I try to move through a packed agenda. I believe that you always come across as both courteous and constructive. For our observers, note that this is a meeting for the the Equity Advisory Group. And so I want to make sure that you give them the respect that they need. There is an opportunity for you to offer comments later in the meeting. I'd like to encourage the EAG to use the raise hand function and/or contribute to the chat as we move forward as you're comfortable, so that we can keep the flow of the conversation moving. May I have the next slide, please? This is very specific for our live stream viewers. It's a YouTube live stream link. You are, as I mentioned, able to provide your comments at a later time in the agenda. Typically, it happens after the break, around 7 p.m. We will provide you with some very specific instructions and guidance in terms of your ability to join us either by phone or through Zoom, and we'll have the ID and specific information available for you. Next slide, please. And here's our agenda. We're going to work through our PSE and EAG updates as we have. There'll be an overview and an update on the bill discount rate, and we have several guests from PSE joining us. We'll take our break. We'll go then to a review of the final clean energy implementation biannual update. We'll hear from Kara and Brian, and then we'll discuss our next steps, talk about our next meetings, and then move to the public comment. Anything to add? Anything that I missed? Okay, let's move to the next slide. Here are the objectives. I think a very comprehensive update on the steps that the company has taken to address the bill discount rate that includes the input that they've received from the EAG. We'll also have a progress report on where we are with the clean energy implementation plan. And again, focus on some of the issues that we've discussed in the past and provide an update for the adjustments that have been made for this year's plan. Those are the two big pieces. And of course, as always, we look forward to your interaction and responding to any questions that you may have. So next slide, please. So I will now turn it back to Ray. As you can see, Ray's the Manager of Communications Initiatives for Clean Energy Strategy and the person that we all look to for guidance in this space. So Ray, if you'd be kind enough to provide us with the updates.
Thank you, Rose. Next slide, please. Okay, first, yay, congratulations. Since we last talked, both equity forums are now complete. We are in the process of compiling notes and preparing a summary for you all to see and review and share your thoughts on. We wanted to just highlight a couple of themes or outcomes that we heard at the meeting last time. We'll spend a bit more time on this during our November meeting as well. The first thing is we heard a lot of feedback that folks were appreciative of the space, that acting as a convener for a broad equity discussion was really appreciated. We heard a lot of people at tables saying, you know, we might not have ever interacted with each other were it not for this opportunity, this space. So that was wonderful to hear. We heard a lot about everyday challenges that customers in named communities face and that the organizations that work in named communities face. And that really added to our understanding to a lot of information that we have from other engagement activities. And then people really appreciated creating opportunities to network, to organize, to share resources. We know we're going to hear about the bill discount rate program a little bit later. For those of you that weren't at an equity forum, the bill discount rate was rolling out the weekend after the forums, and it was, or maybe it was a week later, it was a really great opportunity for the PSE teams to have materials available and provide them to these organizations so they could share them with their clients and help them navigate the new bill discount rate. So you hear more about that tonight. What are we doing next? We're, again, preparing that summary with enough detail to validate participant experiences, but we want to keep it brief, consumable for people to read and use. We're working with a graphic facilitator to develop an image. It's the first time we've done something like this, although she's very experienced. First time I've done something like this, so we'll see a draft of that soon. We had a debrief with the Equity Forum Planning Committee to talk about things that went well, things that we could do better next time. And we're happy to hear more from anyone who wasn't able to attend a debrief, or even if you weren't able to attend but have thoughts, we'd love to hear from you. And then we're thinking about additional actions to embed the Equity Forum learnings in our EAG work, like the the equity moment at the beginning of the meeting. Again, we're going to spend some time on this at our next meeting to talk about what did we learn and perhaps what does it identify for us as opportunities in the future. And I think that's it. Any questions about the equity forum or any EAG members? We saved some space here for you to share your thoughts or reflections. I know we did this a little bit last time, but I'm happy to spend a little bit more time here if anyone wants to share.
So we're inviting thoughts based on this update from Ray. I don't see any hands. Okay.
All right, thanks, Rose. I think we have one more slide for me. We had a steering committee meeting a week and a half or so ago, and please, steering committee members, please feel free to jump in here. We wanted to bring you a couple of ideas. The first is, now that the equity forum is behind us, we're looking into 2024 and see a lot of engagement work that likely will need to happen within and around PSE. And we'd like to take up some of that space that the Equity Forum Planning Committee was using, perhaps for an engagement subcommittee of some kind. And we can take some time and talk to you all about what does that look like and how do we engage. But we think something like the Planning Committee, where you can show up when you're available, you don't have to show up every single time. Meetings maybe every 4 to 6 weeks. The focus, though, would be on participation and engagement topics. So the customer education and awareness program, for example, might come and talk to you about some work that they're doing. We might talk to you about some work we're doing in the CEIP space. We might have someone from program design come talk to you about how to design engagement networks and engagement approaches in specific communities. The idea here is to at least create a space where we might take a little pressure off of the larger EAG meetings. But of course, if and when there's a topic in the smaller group that needs to come to the EAG, then it would certainly be there. So that's the first topic. We're going to do a poll here in a minute, and it's actually going to ask you to share your thoughts on a couple of things here. But I'll pause for a second and see if you have questions, comments about the engagement subcommittee. All right, I'll keep going.
right.
Looking ahead. So in the last month or so, you've responded to a poll about end of year check-ins. Lisa and I are hoping to partner with the community affairs team and come see some of you in person, recognizing not everyone will want to meet in person. So Lisa's going to follow up with you via email. We heard from some members of the steering committee that it might be good to offer these in small groups as well. So Lisa's going to reach out and coordinate with you all. If you want to do an end of year check-in via phone, we'll do that. If, I don't know, Dennis and TJ want to join us for lunch in Puyallup, we'll do that. I just made that up, Dennis and TJ, just because your names are on the screen. We just would like to connect with you as the year comes to a close. We take December off for meetings. And we're looking ahead into 2024. One of the big questions we'll have for all of you as we start to look towards 2024 is if you intend to continue being members of the EAG into the 2024 cycle. Our terms officially end in April, but we can, again, talk to you about that individually as well, but just something I want to flag for you all. It's a question we have as we think about recruiting new members for 2024 and what that might look like. And the last thing, oh, please, Rose, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Amy has a question in the chat around
thank you.
The role of the engagement subcommittee and kind of an example of what the expectations might be.
Great question, Amy. Yeah, I think that is a role that you all can help us understand in terms of what you would like to do, how you would like to affect engagement. And it will also probably depend on the topics, and you can help us decide what topics we bring to that space and how we engage in that space. So I think a lot of open to your ideas and your own collective creativity.
And then there's a question from Emily around the term of members and whether or not they would quote term out in next year and how we plan to handle that.
Great question, Emily. I am familiar, but I'm an expert in the charter. I believe that, yes, the original members had a 3-year term that can be renewed at the end of that term. I think for another 2 years, do I have that right, Rose?
Well, I think we staggered them a bit. So yes, there are, I think, 2 and 3 year terms, if I recall, but that's one of the reasons I think we need to revisit that charter. But
Yeah, for sure.
I think the important point here is that while the term may end, it doesn't necessarily preclude ongoing participation. There is a mechanism for that as well.
Thanks, Rose. Great questions. Thank you very much. And is that the last one? I see TJ's response. Okay. 2024 meeting schedule. So I think Kim or Lisa are going to put the link in the chat. So there's a poll about the subcommittee and about the 2024 meeting schedule. When we met with the steering committee, we heard that Mondays are not a great day for a substantial number of members. So, but we did hear that the time after the 5 o'clock hour is generally preferred. So the question for you all tonight is, you have 4 days, not including the weekends. I include Friday on the weekends, so Monday through Thursday. If you can let us know which of those days you generally are available. I understand you probably don't know what you're doing on June, whatever, of 2024. But just generally speaking, what days work for you? And we have a similar question. Which days are like a no-go? If you're every Monday night is booked because you teach a class or some other reason, let us know that too. And we're going to do our best to juggle the schedule around to make it work. And I see the poll in the chat. Thank you, Kim. And Rose, Lisa, did I miss anything on that slide? I think we got it all.
I think you did. So now we'll just move to the poll and encourage everyone to complete that poll. It'll be very helpful for us as we plan for our committee and group activities for next year. All right, now as I promised at the top of the meeting, we are going to have a conversation around the bill discount rate. We can move to the next slide, please. And it's my pleasure to introduce a couple of new faces to our meeting. John Inge is the Marketing and Program Manager for Customer Engagement, and he's responsible for the overall management and marketing of communications for billing and payment initiatives. I'd like to welcome Melissa Ann Troy, who is the supervisor for the customer outreach efforts. And I enjoyed reading Melissa's bio because she considers her team as customer advocates. And I think it's really important to have a group within the company focused on that. I'd like to welcome back Suzanne Sasville. I think Suzanne has presented on a number of occasions, and she's the supervisor of our energy assistance programs and also is responsible for managing the LIAC. And then Teresa Birch, the manager of customer solutions. And Teresa is the one who comes up with very creative problem solving for addressing customer interests and demands. So I'd like to welcome them. And John, I believe you're going to lead us off with the presentation.
Terrific. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. On behalf of the team, I appreciate the opportunity to overview the bill discount program with you, as well as discuss our efforts to reach those customers that would most benefit from the program. So next slide. So I know that all of you are aware of the discount program, but I thought I'd take a moment to provide a bit of a refresher of how it works. As indicated in the chart, it's a tiered discount rate program that provides income eligible customers with a monthly discount on their energy bill. And by renewing annually and providing any changes in the number of their household or the county they live in or their household income, the customer will then continue to receive the benefit of bill discount on an ongoing basis. As you see, there's 6 tiers that are where the level of discount corresponds with the level of need. Some of the acronyms for clarity, FPL, federal poverty level, and AMI is area median income. And one of the key features of this program that really differentiates it from previous assistance programs that we've had is the ability for customers to be able to self-attest to their income. So rather than needing to provide the documentation of their income and kind of the challenge to provide the needed paperwork, they will be able to be self-attest their income, which goes a long way in streamlining the whole onboarding process for bill discount. Also, with each bill discount application, an application for HELP, a sister program, will also be generated. And let's now briefly discuss HELP. So next slide, and Suzanne is going to take us through this.
Unmute myself, that helps. Thank you, John. So our Home Energy Lifeline program is what creates the acronym HELP. So you'll see PSE HELP as being one of our rate-based programs that PSE offers. It's a program right now that is $30 million collected from all of PSE's rate payers. It's a tiny component of the base rate per kilowatt hour and per therm that makes up this, this funding source. And this program has been in existence for about 20 years now. And the idea in working it in tandem with our bill discount rate is so that we can lower the energy costs for our customers to a degree that make it manageable for them to pay. And the grant it's administered by our 11 community action partnership agencies that are able to access the application either from our system or from having the customer in for an appointment. And the grant range is anywhere from $250 to $1,000, and it's applied once in a program year. And so that goes from October 1st through September 30th. And then the next year, the income guidelines go up. So every year those income guidelines change on October 1st, and a customer is eligible once again to apply.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And I think Ray noted, sorry, John, to interrupt, but
sure.
We are encouraging EAG members, if they have questions or comments, to use the chat function. All right, please continue, John.
Thanks. Okay, next slide then, please. Okay, what is energy burden? This is a metric we use in our campaign, so we really wanted to provide you with a clear definition of what it consists of. Simply put, it's a percent of the household income that is required to pay utility bills, so adding the stress to their overall budgeting. Additionally, we're defining severe energy burden as kind of the households with energy bills that exceed 10% of what their annual household income is. So I wanted to provide you that, as this will be a term that we'll be using further in the presentation. And unless there's any questions, next slide, please. Okay, what are we trying to do? So the goal of the discount bill program is to reach those customers with the highest level of energy burden, where the level of discount corresponds with their level of financial need. The three strategies for the campaign is to streamline the customer experience, first by providing the ability for customers to self-attest through their income, and then combine with a means for customers to know if they are eligible before they go through the application process, which we are confident will result in a higher rate of completed applications. And I'll go into a little bit of that as we proceed. Secondly, to reduce language and technology hurdles that impede customer engagement. And third, to leverage opportunities to segment communications by language, geographic location, and age as a means to increase the rate of customer engagement. Next slide. So who are we trying to reach? These are kind of the key numbers of the campaign. 342,000 is, in essence, our customer universe. These are the number of households that income qualify or income eligible using the ceiling of our eligibility of 80% area median income. The second number, the 157,000 number, are those customers that are gas and dual fuel customers. And with these, there's they take on an importance because these customers are part of a included as part of a CCA tariff and a UTC mandate, which will be explained in coming slides, but is an important segment for enrolling into the bill discount program. Next, that of the, sorry, trip you up. Of that 342,000, one area that is key is 220,000, or nearly 2/3 of this audience that we're trying to reach, have never been behind on the bills, never been part of an assistance program. So they are new to any type of assistance communication from PSE, which is something that we take into account in some of the messaging that we have. As an added challenge, nearly 120,000, about over a third of this customer base has no email, which it adds yet another barrier to overcome for this campaign. And the last two segments are segments that have been highlighted because they both index highly for this campaign. Seniors, 65 years plus, and those that are native Spanish speakers, not proficient in English. And you see those percentages, or those numbers, they both comprise a large percentage of who we're trying to reach. And again, there'll be an order of emphasis that both those segments will be given as part of this campaign. Next slide. Okay, who are we trying to concentrate our efforts on this campaign? First of all, there's going to be a general awareness where we're trying to reach all 342,000 multiple times via online, offline, in-person communications through this, and trying to reach them again with multiple impressions to help kind of increase not only the original awareness, but increase the engagement for these customers. Then kind of our areas of concentrations, as I mentioned previously, is reaching seniors, which we'll be using primarily with offline tactics and in-person outreach, mindful of a large percentage of these customers are in our rural areas. So they are more remote in terms of reaching, and a large percentage of these customers are those customers that for which we have no email. So it again necessitates that kind of offline tactics to reach them. The native Spanish speakers, as I'll profile, all materials in this campaign are will be dual language in English and Spanish. And I'll be going into a key part of this. And I think again and again, community outreach, in-person community outreach is one of our primary tactics for this campaign, given some of the challenges for reaching these audience segments. And lastly, the gas and dual fuel customer, which will be emphasizing in those areas where we have a higher rate of gas and dual fuel customers, which tend to be the cities of Seattle and Tacoma and in Snohomish County. Many of our tactics are energy agnostic, so we try to use events and in-person outreach as kind of ways to heavy up with this audience. So next slide on the tariff and mandate, and I'll have Teresa kind of go over this area. That is, unless she doesn't want to. But
Okay,
Teresa,
can you hear me?
hear you now. Yep. Now we
Well, I
don't hear
will
you.
note that this is something that what the regulatory the EAG has asked for clarity around what the regulatory body has asked PSE to do. And this is the language taken directly from the docket. Can you hear me, John?
Yeah, I sure can. And so I'll just
Okay.
go ahead. So it's, and the reason we're pointing it out too is it's an aggressive target that we've been
I'm here,
mandated to
John.
reach. Okay, you are. Okay.
Yes, I was having trouble with a double mute situation.
Okay.
Go figure. I'm so sorry. Let me just, quick update here. So yes, the Climate Commitment Act is in place now. It has been since October 1st for us, where customers are getting charged. And this is part of our, this is from the Department of Ecology to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. And part of that includes a charge per therm. Right now, there is no electric charge in place at this point. And so we have an indicator that we've built because a low-income customer for the gas, we are instructed to eliminate their burden for this Climate Commitment Act. And the way that we have chosen to identify our known low-income customers is that they have received assistance. So we're really bolstering our efforts to get customers enrolled in these programs. We were able to automatically enroll about 10,000 gas customers on day one because they had received assistance in the last 2 years. The commission has asked us to reach a target of 70,000 participants, and this is just on the gas side because that's where right now the charges are occurring. So gas and dual fuel by January 1st. So a lot of what you're seeing that John's talking about and Melissa will talk about is our efforts to try to get as many customers to come and sign up on their own as we can to meet this 70,000. And then we're going to have other strategies we'll have to put in place in December if we haven't gotten there. But our goal is really to get as many folks in the door as we can using our strategies. So any other questions on this?
Teresa, there is a question in the chat around why this is energy agnostic as opposed to technology agnostic.
That's a great question. So I would love to say if you want to go read the Climate Commitment Act, but it's not a great read. There is a distinction. So on the gas side, we have been ordered to eliminate the burden for low-income customers. On the electric side, it specifically says mitigate the burden as opposed to eliminate. And we've met a lot with other utilities in our state to try to work through these definitions. For us, what that means is that on the gas side, if they're charged $10, their credit is $10. So they will have a net zero impact. Again, we're not charging on the electric side right now. When that happens, it may be a little bit of a different strategy. We're also allowed to use some of those funds to add additional programs, which is being discussed at the state level. But to more directly answer your question, I think that's exactly why it's specific to gas, because it's going to be more expensive for a low-income customer. And so we're trying to protect them from what could be a very large bill increase, depending on what the market's doing and where we're at with our reductions. So I think that's why it's a little bit more stringent on the gas side, that we protect this group of customers.
Thank you, Teresa. There is another question in the chat around the implications of housing instability and whether or not the company is able to track those who move from one address and beyond. And then a follow-on question asking, what does in-person community outreach actually entail? And I would encourage EAG members, if they're comfortable, to come off mute to answer questions if I'm not properly interpreting them. So one is from Amy and the other is from Jenny.
Yes, so Amy, I can touch on yours, and then yeah, Melissa, our resident expert here, will hit heavily on the outreach, and I'm excited for that. There's a lot of good things there as well. For people with housing instability, we're working on that right now. So our goal is that if they move within PSE service territory, we will be able to keep them on their bill discount rate at their new location and communicate to them to ensure that we have still got the correct email and the correct contact information. Usually 90+% of our moves occur the same day. And what I mean by that is the customer calls today and says, I'm in my new place today. Those are relatively simple for us to stay with them and make sure they can stay on their rate. The ones that are just honestly going to be a little more difficult is if they're moving in 2 weeks or in a month or in 2 months. And we're going to try to stay in touch in the interim there to make sure that we're keeping them on the programs that they're, eligible to receive. All right, I'll pass it back to you, John.
Okay, next slide then, please. Okay, I want to give you a visual of what we're driving a lot of the tactics for this campaign to. And again, as I had mentioned previously, we feel that one of the challenges that we wanted to overcome with this campaign was giving somebody the knowledge and the comfort of knowing that they qualify for bill discount prior to going to expending the energy and going to the effort of going through the application process. So this is a bill discount calculator that we're using on our website that the customer would input how many people are in their household, what county they live in, and what their gross household income is. And they would press submit and they would instantly know if they're eligible or not. And then at that point, they would be directed to begin the application process. Next slide. Okay, outside of in-person community outreach, wanted to kind of profile a lot of the tactics that we're using for part of this campaign. All the tactics being mentioned on the screen are both in Spanish and English. PSE.com, of course, is available in 6 languages, but everything else, and the voice or monthly insert is a English only medium. We're trying to work in some dual language into that insert, but everything else that we can reach will be dual language. For clarification, Propel is an application for, it's kind of a EBT purse where somebody who is receiving food assistance would be able to tally and keep track of their monthly balance using this app. And these tactics don't include several additional components of the campaign, which have been created really to help bolster our community outreach efforts. These other tactics, such as flyers, posters, we have what we're calling QR code cards, which have QR codes to the 6 languages available on the website, so somebody can use their native language to go directly to that program page in their chosen language. And in addition, what we're doing is, well, Spanish and English are kind of our base languages that we've made everything available in. working closely with the outreach team to address any other additional non-English language needs we have. For instance, I know for the flyers that we're sending out, which we create on a county by county basis, we're adding Vietnamese and Korean, Mandarin and Cantonese, Russian, Marshallese and Khmer as part of these campaigns. Again, and I look upon that as kind of a ongoing pursuit when we uncover a need that we have, that we'll try to make sure that language never is a barrier to engagement for this campaign. And unless there's any questions, I'm going to turn it over to Melissa to kind of overview the community outreach portion of the campaign.
All right, thank you so much, John. Let me go to the next slide. Perfect. So the customer outreach team, we focus on getting out into the community to reach customers that may not know about our programs or have limited access to them. Our goal is to increase that access to PSE programs for all of our customers in named communities. For bill discount rate, we've really focused in on in-person activities like sign-up workshops, where we bring tablets and paper applications to walk customers through the application process. And book one-on-one appointments at libraries or nonprofit agencies to support customers in a more private setting if they choose. We also have staff and volunteer trainings throughout our service areas so they can assist with those applications for those that they serve on a daily basis. For bill discount rate and other programs, we work with nonprofit agencies and provide funds to bring in a local community-based interpreter to assist with our non-English speaking customers during some of the workshops that we host. This fall, we've completed or have scheduled workshops in 7 languages, including Mixteco, Vietnamese, Korean, and others. We've found opportunities to bring this program to trusted partner channels, including social media posts, newsletters, email, podcasts, and meal distribution boxes through these partner organizations. All of this, along with a lot of other creative ways that we're trying to get this information out to our communities. It's just some examples of the work we've done in the past 2 weeks to be able to get this information out about bill discount rate and help customers sign up and reduce access barriers. We can go to the next slide. So this is just a sample list of the organizations we've partnered with for this promotion to host workshops, share that information on their channels, or to provide staff training. Our team has worked to schedule activities with community organizations to reach several audiences, including immigrant assistance agencies, Vietnamese and military family resources, senior centers, Spanish and multicultural organizations, libraries. The list kind of goes on, but this is just a sample post of some of the different places that we have scheduled activities at. We can go to the next slide. So this is where you come in. Our team would love your help in getting the program information out into the community. We've got our local resources, but we're looking for more agencies that can host sign-up workshops or share our information on social platforms or newsletters. If you know of a great community connector, we'd love to be connected to them. We're also looking for more ways to reach our homebound customers. So if you have a meal or book delivery program in mind that you love, that would be a great option for us to distribute program flyers through. Or if you just want us to come and present to a group that you know of, please send us an email at outreach@pse.com, or you can reach me through Ray, and we'd love to hear your suggestions on how to bring this program and more to some of our customers. With
Great,
that, we'll check on
great.
some questions.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. There is a question from Dennis around support for visually impaired customers.
Dennis, that's a great question that we were discussing internally, different options that we have. In addition to engaging with those community organizations that serve the visually impaired, looking at what we can create for any type of tactics or that can engage. And I think I don't have a concise answer for you other than the fact this is a segment that we are appreciating, is of need, and we look to come up with some tactics. Would love any suggestions that you may have for reaching this audience.
Yeah, and John, I can actually add to that as well. So part of what we're doing when we're out into the community is, we're working with different agencies. We provide the training to the staff before people come into the workshop. And then each of those staff members gets a tablet and they're helping customers apply through the process. So we can actually help many of those sight impaired customers walk through the application and just verbally ask the questions and then help them go ahead and submit the application. So the more that we can get out into the community and do some of these in-person workshops, the more that hopefully we can help those customers that might need that bit of assistance.
If we could go back a slide, I think there was a question. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, and so this is really an example of the list. Just in the 2 weeks that we've had this program out in the community, we've had over 70 activities kind of scheduled with just a team of 6. So this is a sample setting of just some of the different organizations that we've worked with. I can provide a full list. You can check out our events calendar on our website as well. And so we can always help to get that information out there. You can see kind of the list that is going there as well.
Melissa, this is very helpful. If you could provide the full list, and I think the link in the chat for your calendar, I think that would be very helpful. And I see that Amy has another question. And if you can see it, I'm trying to get to it quickly. Have you reached out to advertise with county library systems? I think you specifically mentioned libraries, but
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have already started to partner with libraries. I can use Kitsap as an example where we're setting up 4 different workshops that are at that library system. Skagit County is also an area where we've really focused in on libraries using their community rooms and then having one-on-one appointments set up on their website so that you can go in and get like a 10-minute window with one of our outreach members up in Mount Vernon. So we've just been trying to find different ways that we can partner with the library systems, especially to not only provide those workshops and one-on-one appointments, but we've also utilized their book delivery program to get the information out in their flyers alongside the books that they've ordered.
Great. Also, John, Melissa, and team, you get a thumbs up for your calculator. They think that's a great idea. It came from Megan, so that's good feedback. Well, this is very helpful, and we appreciate you keeping your door open for additional input and feedback from the EAG. And so I'd like to thank you, John, Suzanne, Melissa, and Teresa for a fabulous presentation. We will definitely be in touch. And EAG members, keep your thoughts going on any questions that you may have, and we'll do our best to get those answered for you.
Thank you very much.
Rose. And can I add one quick thing? Amy indicated up earlier, she was on the light rail, couldn't hear my entire response. So I did add some detail up there at 5:49 to her response for others that are to her question about customers moving. So please check that out if you wanted a little more detail.
Thank you very much. We always monitor the chat. If we've missed anything, we promise we'll go back and try to make sure that we are responsive. So our thanks to you again, and we look forward to the next update. And I see the questions are coming, but it's my responsibility to move us forward, especially since it's time for a break. So I think it's time for a break. We have a 5-minute stretch break for everyone. And I'd ask that for those of you who are planning to join us for public comment, here's the information that I promised earlier, a Zoom link and the appropriate ID for that, the meeting ID, as well as a call-in number and the meeting ID for the call-in. So let's move to our break. Basically, we're now going to return at 6. Is that correct, Kim?
Yep.
There we go. Feel free to turn off your videos and do a stretch, grab some water, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. Time for us to move on to the second half of our updates. And again, for those of you joining by live stream and you have an interest in public comment, here are the details for your participation. Okay, great. Let's move on, please, to the next slide as we invite Kara Durbin and Brian Tyson to offer us an update on the CEIP filings. I believe that between Brian and Kara, they are going to provide us with a comprehensive update around where we are with some upcoming deadlines. So may I start with you, Kara, and then I'll leave it to you to work with your colleague, Mr. Tyson, as we go through this presentation. So
wonderful.
welcome.
Thank you, Rose. Can you hear me okay? All right. Yeah. Okay, good. Sometimes the double mute, as Teresa experiences, is tricky. All right, so if we can go to the next slide, I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to ground us all at a very high level in some of the targets and actions and overall scope of our first clean energy implementation plan that we filed in 2021. A handful of you on the EAG were a part of that journey with us, and we're thankful that you are still with us. It was a lightning fast year where we were adapting to the new clean energy law and developing our first plan. So a little bit of this context I think will be helpful as we dive more into what's changing in the biennial update. So I wanted to just start there. Our plan sets out some ambitious clean energy goals for us in terms of achieving a goal of 63% clean electricity by the end of 2025, which is really nearly doubling the cleanliness of our portfolio over a 4-year period. Additionally, we will be moving off of coal by the end of 2025 and making progress towards 2030, where we are looking to be at least 80% renewable and non-emitting, or what's sometimes referred to in the law as a carbon neutral electric system. And then finally, the beyond that in 2045 is our major goal of achieving 100% clean electricity. So each successive clean energy plan is moving towards both that 2030 standard and the eventual 2045 standard. In the development of our first plan in 2021, those of you that were with us and those of you that are new, we spent a lot of time really thoughtfully talking about how do we define factors of vulnerability? How do we really define what we mean by vulnerable populations? And came up with a really thoughtful and pretty comprehensive list with the support of the EAG in 2021. And Brian will talk more about this a little bit later. We've really worked hard in our mapping efforts to better understand within PSE's service territory, where are our highly impacted communities and vulnerable populations, and what factors or multiple factors of vulnerability are they facing? And how does that sometimes get in the way of them participating in the benefits of this clean energy transition? So as some of you may recall, we spent quite a bit of time working on what we called developing customer benefit indicators that really were meant to measure progress over time across a number of categories of benefits, from benefits and burdens for public health, the environment, related to resiliency, energy security, and others. And so we developed a list of these indicators. We plan to track them in our CEIPs over time to see what progress we're making. The Commission, in their order gave us a few more for us to track, and so we will be providing those in going forward. And so that was an important aspect of the plan as well. And then finally, on the right-hand side of this slide, just at a high level, our plan is really made up of a mixture of large scale or utility scale resources like wind and solar and hydropower, and then some more localized or distributed resources, an example being rooftop solar. We also will benefit from demand response programs and, of course, energy efficiency, which is for a long time has been a key part of our clean energy journey, still remains an important part of our plan. So that's just a quick overview. If we could go to the next slide. I think I have one more, and then we'll and then Brian and I will tag team from there. So just a reminder of where we are. Feel like I've covered this slide a couple times over the past couple of years, but it's still true. We filed the plan in December. As many of you recall, we spent much of last year in a bit of a holding pattern with a formal legal process at the commission to review our plan, for parties to make comments about what should change, and to await a formal decision. We did receive that in June, and that it was an approval of our plan with a number of conditions placed on approval, which means the commission gave us homework to do both for this biennial update, which we'll talk about, and also conditions for our next clean energy plan that we'll file in 2025. So with that, I think we'll move to the next slide, and it might be Brian kicking off our next section. I'll have to see, and I'll pause and see if there are any questions just on that intro.
Questions or comments for Kara on the historical review, sort of where we've been and your participation in that? Kara, I don't see any. So looks like Brian has come off mute, so we'll turn it over to him.
Great.
Great. Thanks, Kara. Thanks, Rose. So as Kara mentioned, I'm going to do a bit of an update on the biennial update. Just as a note, the biennial update is not a full CEIP, so you won't see the extent that we did last time, but it really is just a refresh or an update on a number of the items that we touched on back in the CEIP. If we go to the next slide, please. The focus is on the refinement, and these are the different areas that we're going to touch on today and that you'll see in the biennial update itself. First, we'll talk a lot about equity in the biennial update, and I'll spend a couple slides here focus on equity, really thinking about all the research, all of the deep dive that we did with this group and internally, just to really understand what is energy equity and energy justice. And so I'll walk through those 4 tenets, which will mirror what will be in the biennial update. Then I'll talk a little bit about our updated definition on named communities. So this group, as Kara mentioned, was a part of the initial definition of vulnerable populations that has since been updated. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means. This group has also been involved on the deepest need conversation and minimum designations. So once we get to those slides, I'll touch on the final definition, the preliminary definition, once we get there. Now, the other piece we'll touch on, and Carol will really touch on this, is changes, updates to our targets and our goals for this year. And then we'll also talk about some of the specific actions. This is also a key part of our first CEIP, and I'm here to just present a couple of the programs and products that we're planning to move forward with in this biennial update. And then Ray will wrap us up and talk about all the public engagement progress that you all have been a part of and other advisory groups, other community members have been a part of to move forward on this biennial update. So let's go to the next slide and jump right into equity. Now, again, as I mentioned, we've done a number of research with various resources, whether it be colleges or organizations. One in particular came from the UTC Commission. They had an order with Cascade Natural Gas, and it really spelled out these 4 different buckets of energy equity and energy justice, thinking about recognition, procedural, distributive, and restorative. Now, what we plan to do and illustrate in the biennial update is show how each of the different steps that we're doing in that biennial update, conversations that we've had with you all, really tie to one or more than one of these buckets that you see here. So when we think about recognition, justice, and we think about understanding who our customers are, what their existing burdens are, in our biennial update, we will talk about highly impacted communities, how we define vulnerable populations, what are the different metrics or requirements for defining deepest need. And again, it goes back to just understanding what those barriers, what those burdens are. And you've all seen the mapping, and today I'll show later on what the mapping looks like for deepest need and for highly impacted, or I should say for named communities overall. And then the other piece, in the biennial update, we'll talk a bit about a disparities in root factors analysis. So this is analysis done on the energy efficiency side to really look at where there are disparities in participation as it relates to energy efficiency programming and why those disparities may exist. What are those existing factors that may be challenges or roadblocks for participation, and trying to understand what those roadblocks are and how we may move forward in mitigating those roadblocks or removing those roadblocks to allow for higher participation for certain customers. So then we talk about procedural justice, and this is where we get a lot into the engagement. We just had a rich conversation on, Melissa came and talked about the engagement with the new program. This is where in our biennial, we'll talk about all the engagement we've done in the past year, not just with the biennial, but also engagement we've done for our new DER programs, and how do we establish new programs if they're for low-income customers or other customers. There's a DER community engagement report. I believe we had a member from our team come in to talk to you all about what they did earlier on. And so we'll talk a bit about that report and other target engagement and outreach that was done throughout the year. On distributive justice, goes back to customer benefit indicators, and we've had lots of conversations about the indicators, the metrics, what are they measuring, how do we measure, how do we track progress. You'll see in the biennial update that we've added a couple of metrics based on the commission order, and there's also a few metrics, indicators that we're still working on that we'll have to bring back to this group and to other groups just to talk on a bit further. Now, with those three, recognition, procedural, and distributive, we think that the culmination of those three will really push us towards restorative justice, because if we're able to enhance, if we're able to really dive into those three, we think that the restorative nature of equity will be elevated as well. Let's go to the next slide and start to first, as I mentioned, talking about recognition. First, going back to our definition on named communities. This map should be familiar. It's a similar map that we saw back in our first CEIP, but there's been a number of updates based on the updates for vulnerable populations, and I'll touch on that shortly. But again, we put this mapping together for a couple of reasons that you see listed on the slide. Understanding who our customers are, understanding where we need to increase or target any type of awareness or education on some of the programming or just clean energy in general, thinking about where we may go, have dialogue with customers as it relates to designing programs or trying to put forth new products. And then once we start to enroll customers, we also have a better sense of where we could place products as well moving forward. Again, I will say this is a map of our electric service territory, and so that's why you sort of see the gap there, but in between the county and Snohomish County. But again, you'll see this refresh in the biennial update as well. Now, I want to focus on vulnerable populations because that was where we made a number of adjustments on our end to the definition of vulnerable populations. So we can go to the next slide, please. So here we again had a condition number 9, that asks us to look at additional factors, as well as look at, are there factors that are overlapping? Is there a duplicative nature of some of the factors? Are we measuring the same thing twice? And if we're doing that, we really need to tease out what is it that we're trying to measure. Let's figure that out and stick to that metric so that we're not duplicating some of these efforts here. So we did that in our vulnerable population definition. The other thing is that we added a couple of other factors, and I think we heard this from either this group or other groups about adding things like heat risk, housing quality, wildfire vulnerabilities. So now that we've added these factors, there's been a refresh and an update on the mapping as a whole. And we've also been able to get better data sets, more recent data sets as well. And so when you see the mapping in the biennial update, there will be a map that shows what changed, where there was an increase in vulnerability, or maybe there was a decrease in vulnerability just based on the change in definition as well. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is where we've had, I believe we've been having conversation on deepest needs since maybe August or July. So now we want to come back and bring forth what we found and throughout all of the deepest need conversations. So again, thank you all for your honesty and openness on helping really understand what deepest need is. So the first piece I'll say is that we believe deepest need is we've started with severe energy burden, which here we target as 10%, meaning 10% of your annual household income is devoted to energy bills. And so when we started that layer at severe energy burden, one of the first things we did is understand where there are clusters or neighborhoods of customers where there's a high density of energy burden, severe energy burden customers. That was something we heard when we did our joint advisory group, is really trying to understand where are those pockets at, where are the clunks or the chunks at that will really help us identify maybe a particular area or a particular pocket that we could understand and go into and really try to have those conversations. So that's one layer. The other layer is then understanding our service territory as a whole by census block groups and understanding we're the top 50% of our census block groups with severe energy burden. And the reason we do that is because with the clustered approach, we believe we get more of the some of the denser urban areas, but with the census block groups, then we're able to capture some of the rural areas out further in our service territory. And so we heard that as well, is that, you know, we want to be sure we capture the spectrum of customers wherever they may live throughout our vast territory. And so we've got the pockets, which relates to density. Then we have the census block groups, which really relates to the number of customers all across our service territory by census block group. Okay, so now we've got those two. But the other thing we heard in this group and with the other advisory groups is that we have to think beyond just the economic factors. And so what are the other non-economic factors that we can add and bring in to really help illustrate the level of severity or the dire position or situation customers may be in? And so that's where you see the gradients of the colors here, where you see the yellow, the orange, the red, the deeper red. That gradient really gives us a sense on the deepest needs or the compounding factors for the customers that we've identified as deepest need here. So as the colors go from the yellow, orange to red to darker red, that's where you'll start to see those compounding factors. And so what that means is it's not just energy burden for customers, but it could be other areas. It could be housing quality that has a really high score. It could be other health risks that add to a higher score. And so again, this gives us an understanding of not just the economic side, but also the non-economic side as well, to understand what barriers our customers may have. Okay, now there's a final layer. Okay, now this goes back to sort of the conversation we were having up in Mount Vernon when we did the equity forum. It's one thing to do this mapping at a quantitative level, but it's another thing to have the conversations through our community and customer teams to really understand, is the mapping really matching what we're hearing out in the communities? Are these really the customers with the deepest need? And so what we're trying to do here is be able to match sort of ground truthing what we have for our mapping to what we're hearing out in the community as well. Okay, now one of the things when we do that, we think we've got about 65,000 customers that really define deepest. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so now we want to talk a bit about the minimum designations. Now, I remember when we first talked, there was a lot of conversation on we got to get the definition first. It was really critical that we get the definition first. So that was one piece. Then the other piece we heard was, we talked a lot about some of the challenges and barriers in terms of putting together, in terms of focusing products or programs on customers in the deepest need. And so we think that both in trying to make that definition and also trying to understand those barriers, that that we're trying to that we're trying to put together a percentage that's achievable in the next 2 years, that's feasible based on what we know current to date, and that we can actually move forward with over this span. And so we think right now that minimum designation percentage may be around 2.5%. And when I say that, it means we would designate 2.5% of the energy benefits for demand response, DER solar and storage, energy efficiency towards customers in the deepest need. So to give some numbers, that's about, from our existing target, that's about 2 megawatts of solar, little less than 1 megawatt of storage, and about 1.5 megawatts of demand response. And again, this is all going to be illustrated in the biennial update, but that's sort of our preliminary assessment right now, based on the definition of deepest need, based on the feasibility and the challenges with reaching out to customers in the deepest need. We think that 2.5% is where we think we can be for deepest need. Okay, let me see. I think we can pause for questions before we pass to Kara.
Thank you, Brian. EAG members, do you have questions? Brian's covered a significant amount of material here, but I think there's definitely a focus on some of the things that you have been actively engaged in terms of your conversations. Any questions, clarification, feedback? Feel free to use the chat or come off mute for any questions.
This is TJ Protho. Maybe we
So
okay.
Good question. So what we really want to show here is really give you all an overview of what to expect when you see the biennial update. This particular area was an area that we all had deep conversations on, like I said, for the past couple months. And so really was bringing awareness to this group of, this is where we're at on the definition. This is where we're, this is a preliminary look at the percentage itself. So if you have feedback, this would be the time to hear that. If you don't, that's okay. I know it's a lot to take in, and we don't have the numbers there on the slide or anything, but that's sort of the ask right now, TJ, is just if there's an initial reaction. If not, that's okay. But just to give you all an awareness of what you should expect once the biennial update comes out. But thank you for asking that, TJ.
Any other questions?
I see Dennis's hand up.
Thank you.
Good follow-up, Dennis. So when we say 2.5%, if we remember by order, we've been asked to look at 30% of the energy benefits. So in other words, 30% of the megawatts we do in DER solar should be targeted towards named communities, right? And so what we're saying now is, for customers in the deepest need, 2.5% of the megawatts we use towards DER solar should be focused on customers in the deepest need, meaning we need to either create programs or products or whatever it may be, so that we are targeting and making sure that customers in the deepest need can participate in those solar storage, those different resource programs. And segue to Kara. She's going to give us a continued discussion on targets.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank you,
Brian. Sorry, Rose, didn't mean to talk over you there. I will, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some updates that we're making to our targets for the biennial update. And before I dive into, I know there's a lot of detail on this slide, but bear with me. I want to kind of start with just talking about where we are today. So we're now nearly about 2 years into our original plan, and we're still on track to nearly double our renewable resources by the end of 2025, which is really a great place for us to be. As part of our 2021 plan, we developed, and you'll see it on the first row of this chart, we developed annual interim targets or goals. And it was really, the purpose of that was to show the glide path of how we intend to make progress each year towards achieving our goal of 63% in 2025, that last year in the 4-year period. And so we finished 2022, we're in 23 now, and at this point, we're on track to meet or exceed 3 of our 4 annual goals. So in 2022, you can see we actually achieved 45.5%, so about a little over 2% more than our goal for that year. We're on track for this year to come out at around 53% as well, and we're on track to meet or exceed by a teeny bit in 2024 our annual goal to be at about 60%. It's really those are the progress of the first 3 years, and we are seeing a lot of growth on our electric system within the implementation period, which I want to talk about a little bit more in a minute. So what we're proposing to change in the biennial update is to adjust our target in 2025, that final year of the plan, from the 63% we had set out to 60%. And there are a number of factors that lead us to make this adjustment. And we think that part of the purpose of having a biennial update that we prepare midway through the implementation period is to provide an opportunity for the utility to make adjustments based on changes in circumstances since the plan was originally filed. So if it's an opportunity to make course corrections or adjustments that make sense as we go. A major reason that I mentioned for adjusting our target in 2025 is just that our loads have really grown significantly between what we thought they would be when we wrote our plan in 2021, which was based on our 2021 analysis, actually going back even a little further to parts of 2020, and what we forecast our loads to be today in 2023. We're anticipating load growth of about 7% when you compare what we thought our needs would be in 2025 versus what we're projecting for that calendar year now. And that has an impact for us because the Clean Energy Law requires us to set percentage targets. So essentially the denominator is growing on us within the implementation period, requiring us to acquire more clean energy megawatt hours to meet that same percentage goal. So that the load growth we've seen is a major factor. I've listed a few others here on the slide. We have some short-term hydropower contracts that are currently in effect that are set to expire in 2024. We may be able to extend those, and that could help us a bit in 2025, but we don't know that yet. There are new resources also that we are pursuing through our all-source RFP process that may not be constructed and online in time in 2025. More likely, we might expect those, if we do secure them, to come online in 2026 or perhaps even the year after. So if those resources are secured, they'll still help us in making progress towards our clean energy goals because our eyes are still set on that 2030 standard. It's just they will help us more in the next CEIP period. And then another factor or challenge that we're seeing is that our actual generation, as compared to what we forecast, is trending to be lower than we anticipated. So not to get too much into the weeds, but we plan to average water conditions, and that's what the commission rules require. It's called a P50 standard, but it means that it's an average. So in one year you might be right on, but next year it might be too low. And so we do think that we'll want to get a little bit more conservative as we plan going forward so that we can account for that variability. Some years it could work the other way for us. We could have more hydro generation than we were planning for. Other years it might be less. That's a risk that we need to be able to plan for. So those are some of the reasons that are driving us to make this change. I still want to note that when you factor in the higher loads over the 4-year period, our estimates show we're going to deliver about 2.5 million more clean megawatt hours over the 4-year period than what we originally set out to do. So that is significant. And we still will strive to meet a 63% target in 2025. It just really depends on the extent to which there are reasonable opportunities for us to acquire resources between now and the end of 2025. So that's a bit of an update on the targets, and I'll gladly take questions if there are some. But if we go to the next slide, maybe I'll also cover some of the other targets in our plan. On our renewable energy target, we didn't express the target as an average, but that's something that we plan to reflect in the biennial update. Having an average for the 4-year period should allow us in this period and in future periods to account for more of that variability. We'll still set annual goals so you can see how we make progress year over year, but it's not always going to be perfectly linear. So we think that sort of approach makes sense. We're also adjusting our energy efficiency target, and that's really in response to really aligning our plan with our biennial conservation plan process that operates on a 2-year cycle. The law required us to create a 4-year energy efficiency target, but we only had information for the first 2 years. So our second 2 years were a placeholder, and we used the 2022, wow, it's late, 2023 numbers as a placeholder for the final 2 years, not really knowing what they would be. And now we are adjusting the target to reflect what the actual draft 2024-2025 plan numbers indicate. So this is really just an alignment in the clean energy law with the biennial conservation plan process. We've increased our demand response target significantly from our original plan, and that's also indicative of really the strong number of opportunities and bids that came in through our RFP process with vendors with demand response offerings that we could pursue, and Brian will talk a little bit more about some of those. So we are pursuing all of the cost-effective bids that came in through that process, and you see that target has gone up quite a bit. And then some of you may recall that we set, these weren't required by the law, but we set a target for distributed solar and distributed batteries of how we wanted those to contribute as part of our plan, because we felt like those had the most, had potential for really those localized benefits. So we have an 80 megawatt target for distributed solar. The commission did double our community solar target as a requirement. So we will do more community solar within that 80. And we're still on track and committed to our distributed storage target. So that's an update on targets. I think that might be, no, I think I have one more slide. I'm just kidding. If we can go to the next slide, I'll cover this one, and then I might be handing the baton back to Brian. We'll just see. So this slide really just covers some of the new clean energy resources that we anticipate having in our portfolio over the next 4 years. Clearwater project in Montana was announced earlier this year, 350 megawatt project out of Montana. And then the Vantage Wind project is also coming online in sometime in 2025, contributing that 90 megawatts. And then we have some short-term clean resources that are also contributing to our portfolio, primarily hydro contracts that are supporting our portfolio. So that's just a snapshot of some of our resources, new resources that are contributing. And if you go to the next slide, please. Yep, that it is. I'll pause for questions. I'll let Rose do that, and then it'll probably be Brian up next. So thanks.
All right, thank you, Kara. EAG members, do you have any questions for, I think we'll move to the next slide.
Yes, we will. Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Kara. So now I'm going to dive into the specific actions. And this is one area where we did a lot of work trying to really illustrate and visualize all the different programs and products that we foresee standing up, moving forward with over the next 2-year period to close out this CEIP period. I'll first start with energy efficiency. Here is not a comprehensive list of all of our energy efficiency programs. This is just a snapshot of the programs that are targeting towards named communities here. And I don't think this isn't all of them. There are other programs that will target named communities, but we just wanted to provide a snapshot here. Low-income weatherization, I think many of us are familiar with. multifamily retrofits and new construction, then small business direct install. These are all various programs. Again, that goes back to that equitable distribution of benefits, where we're targeting these megawatt hour savings towards customers within named communities. Once the biennial update is filed, the biennial conservation plan, so the BCP, which lists out all the energy efficiency programs, is also filed on the same day as well. And the BCP is where you'll see a deeper breakdown on all the different programs that are available through energy efficiency. Okay, if we can go to the next slide. So here we look at demand response, and this is a pretty exciting tranche of resource, if you will, because these are all new. We've not had demand response in some time, and so it's exciting to launch these 4 programs. Again, demand response, the focus is reducing energy usage either during certain time periods or throughout the day. And there's a number of different mechanisms that are used throughout the program. So one program where we incentivize or provide rewards for customers to shift their behavior to reduce their energy usage. There's others, Flex Smart, where we provide rewards for enrolling a smart device. So if customers enroll a thermostat or a hot water heater or EV, they'll be provided with the incentive as well for that. We also have other programs where customers are given notifications or tips on how to shift their behavior, and that leads to a drop in energy usage as well. And we also have a program that's really focused on personalizing energy reduction for commercial and industrial customers as well. Now, all these programs will launch this year. I believe the Flex Events program, we've already had an event earlier this summer, but these are offered across our service territory. But again, the focus is on reducing energy usage through either incentives or notifications, and there will be opportunities and a focus for named communities, including deepest need customers. Okay, next slide should be storage. Oh, great questions.
And Brian, there are some questions piling up for you. You may want to take a look at the chat before you move forward.
So weatherization, I actually, is it through the, I think it
Brian,
is.
do you want me to take that one?
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, it really is primarily delivered through the local agencies, and we do have a spot on our website that lists the different agencies that we can connect you to. So we certainly can help with determining whether you're income eligible, what some of the options are, but they are run through the local agencies in partnership with us. So good question.
And then there's a question around the rewards, and I think a more detailed question from Emily around switching from gas to electric appliances. So Marco's asking,
yeah, Marco,
you know, what are the rewards?
Yeah, I'm gonna I have the report here, so I can try to look up those rewards for this
Clarify.
part. Oh, go ahead, Rose.
No, go ahead, Brian.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna try to look those rewards up, Marco, and if I hopefully by the end of this meeting I can pull those up. For the second part on switching from gas to electric, so we do not discuss that in the biennial update, but I believe it is discussed in the BCP, but on the gas side, Carrie, you may have to, and may be wrong. Oh, I think you're double muted.
I am sorry. I don't have a helpful answer to that one, Emily. I think we'll need to follow back up with you. You mentioned there are not very robust offerings from IRA like there are for homes. We'll have to follow up with that team and learn a little bit more. I don't think all of the IRA rules are finalized, but I'm not an expert in that space. So we'll try to get you some more information there.
Okay, Brian, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure we tried to catch up with the question, so please proceed.
No worries. All right, and I'm going to come back, Marco, to your question as soon as I can find it. So let's go to DER storage. So we've got two new programs or products under storage. One really comes through our RFP process, where there are either developers or standalone storage projects out there, where we're just buying the energy and we can use that energy during peak times. So that's about 33.5 megawatts. We think that's out there, but there's also a customer voluntary program where we provide, again, incentives for customers to install batteries within their residences, and really helps sort of take away that the large upfront costs in terms of installing a battery. Marco, you may ask, what are the incentives? What's the dollar amount there? It's in the report as well. I can try to dig that up as well to look up that incentive, but that would be something that we would show in the biennial update of what that dollar amount is for the incentive. And then the last set of specific actions for the DER solar, if we go to the next slide, here you'll see a number of programs and products. There's a lot there, but this really is a mix of some of the existing products and programs and some of our new programs and products that we plan to launch in the coming years as well. So we've talked a lot about community solar before. I think we've had our team come here and talk a bit about income eligible community solar and the shares that customers are able to receive as credits on their bill by participating. Some of you on this advisory group have participated in that second program for green power solar grants. And so we foresee continuing to fund and continuing that program, which we believe also contributes to the solar, our DER solar target as well. Again, those are funded solar projects that go on nonprofits or public housing authorities or entities associated with BIPOC community members. So again, another way to just to reach out to some of our named communities, vulnerable populations through these grants. Net metering, we expect to expand. There's a current net metering program. We expect PSE to meet the threshold, but then once we get past that threshold, we're anticipating some additional megawatts to be achieved by the end of the period. And then the next couple of products are really focused on some of the newer products. So again, distributed generation, going back to some of the developer-owned or PSE-owned projects that are sort of standalone. But then we have two new products, solar purchase rate and residential rent-to-own. The residential rent-to-own was really a response to the feedback we got on some of our initial programs that we put forth in the CEIP. And so looking at a rent-to-own option for both rooftop solar and battery for customers within named communities and customers as a whole as well. If we could go to the next slide. So then the other specific actions we talk about are not just resource related, but some of the underlying technologies or infrastructure that we need to really maximize the full intent, the full benefit of some of these distributed resources. So we think about grid modernization enhancement that will happen across our service territory. We also think about our new virtual power plant, which really gives us some insight to some of the various devices, thermostats, water heaters, and to be able to fluctuate demand in a more efficient manner across the service territory. So we have that program in place, and as we increase our DER portfolio, this VPP virtual power plant will really help us control and monitor that increase as well. And then I'll also point out our time varying rates pilot, which has already launched, and you can see the breakdown there between all our customers, and there's also a focus on named communities in that product as well. So as you can see, a lot of different specific actions broken out by different DER, solar storage, energy efficiency, things like that, demand response, but also each of them, we're already thinking about a focus on named communities, a focus on deeper customers in the deepest need as we put forth some of these products. And so you will see that reflected in the, you'll see that reflected in the biennial update as well. I think I'm going to pause there and see if there's any questions from thermostat. The enrollment reward is $50 per thermostat. There's an anniversary reward for $20 per season. And then there's a limited time offer enrollment bonus of $25. Okay. For Flex Smart, this is another demand response program. It looks like this is an incentive for EVs, EV chargers, $50 per household, with $10 per month for participation. Water heaters and controls, $50 per unit and $25 per year. So that hopefully gives you a snapshot of the different reward structures for all the different programs. So whether you are enrolling a device, smart thermostat, or enrolling things like water heaters, EV chargers, things like that.
So Ray's indicating that these will be updated for the EAG. May be helpful just to develop for their review a quick summary of the benefits of the programs. And in particular, I know there was a reference to net metering changing, just making sure that everybody is comfortable with the terminology. Do feel free. You are not expected to be utility experts at all. By all means, feel free to come off mute if you have any questions, put it in the chat, or follow up with us so that you feel comfortable moving along. Your role is to apply your experience and the equity lens to the updates that PSE is providing to you. If you see any gaps or if you want more information, they are more than happy to provide that to you. So with that, with the time that we have, any quick questions, comments? I believe that we're expecting an update from Ray on public engagement. And Ray, I'm going to turn it over to you before we go to next steps and then ultimately to public comment. So hang in, we're getting there. So welcome again, Ray.
Thank you, Rose. Just a couple of quick slides for everyone. If you'll go to the next slide, please. We wanted to talk to you a little bit about what we did for engagement. So you might remember back in March of this year, we brought the engagement plan to you all and talked about it for a little while. Since that time, we've had 7 meetings with you all specifically about the biennial in some way. We've also had joint meetings with the Conservation Resource Advisory Group, as well as the Low Income Advisory Committee. Brian Kara talked about those as that contributed to the deepest need definition. Those both joint meetings and work sessions. We also did one-on-one interviews with 20 organizations, some of them represented by members of the EAG. Thank you for folks who made time for us to come and chat with you. And then are just completing up today, I think it closes officially at midnight, an online survey that mirrored a survey we did in 2021. So we can take a look at some questions and understand how that information has evolved over time, or how the responses to those questions have evolved over time. So you'll see a recap of this in the biennial update in a couple of weeks, but we just wanted to give you a quick snapshot of what we've been doing, who we've been talking to. And then on the next slide, please, we'll talk just quickly about lessons learned. This is by no means everything. We just wanted to capture some stories, some insights into what we're hearing. And I did several of those interviews myself. One of the first things I heard at every single interview was that people's basic needs need to come first before engaging on clean energy discussions. They need bill assistance, they need help navigating systems, they need support in, quite frankly, much more important things than clean energy in their minds. So that's something we're taking to heart and really thinking about when we go sit down and talk to people. How do we have these conversations? And what's the right conversation to have? People, we hear all the time, we need to go to where people are, and we totally agree. And physically, we need to go to where they are, but also we need to realize what space are they actually in their lives. Are they in a space to talk about solar panels, or do they just need to have a conversation about bill assistance? And that's something really important that we're thinking about and spreading across the company. We need to, there's a lot of clean energy knowledge out there, but it is varied across the communities we talk to. That's not a surprise. Some communities have a lot and others don't have as much. We were reminded that some of the clean energy terms like DERs, for example, do not have a literal translation in a lot of languages. And so, or some languages. So we even have to think about how do we communicate concepts that might not exist in someone's native language. There's interest in learning about clean energy it's really high, but it's also varied, not a surprise. I'm going to speed up because I know we're going to run out of time. Clean energy transition is seen as both a risk and an opportunity. Lots of people get excited about solar panels, batteries, what clean energy can do for them, how it may benefit the environment, but they're also concerned about the cost, the infrastructure challenges. You know, do I have a roof that can support solar panels? How can I participate? How do I get to be part of this? So something to think about. We also, you know, went to sort of the edges of the service area, the island communities north of us, and we heard about reliability and resiliency were key concerns in many communities, whether it be for power outages, but also reliability is an income factor too as well. And then lastly, just briefly, community organizations were really willing to talk to us and also extremely resource constrained. And they reminded us of that, you know, every ask we have of them is another resource that they need to dedicate to participating in these conversations or to bring their clients and customers in to have conversations with us. So again, we have to think about and be strategic about when and where we make asks of community-based organizations so we get the most value out of those conversations and don't overextend people any more than they already are. And next slide, just to talk about next steps. All right, so what happens next? Brian and Kara already mentioned the biennial update is to be submitted on November 1st. There'll be a commission public comment period following, and then a formal commission review and approval process. This will be the first time that we've submitted a biennial, also the first time the commission has had one to review. So that process will play out over a little bit of time, and we'll be providing you updates as we go. And then on the right side, beyond the update, we have a lot of work to do ahead of us. As Brian said, the deepest need minimum designation conversation is not over. We have a number of conditions that weren't specific to this cycle. They're specific to the 2025 CEIP. So we'll be working on those. We need more clean energy resources, so we're working on acquiring more. We have to refine existing and develop new programs. Some of the programs that Brian mentioned today still need work to get out into the world and make them active. So that'll be coming. And then we have to continue to work on our equity efforts as we move through implementation of these new programs and move into development of the 2025 CEIP, which, believe it or not, is not very far away, and we're already thinking about it. And Rose, that is my, 7 o'clock. Look at that. How'd I do?
Absolutely perfect. You get an absolute gold star for that. Thank you so much, Ray. Really important information, but it does demonstrate significant progress. And again, I invite and encourage the EAG to comment on any aspects of that. Quickly, in terms of next steps, your very hardworking steering committee is scheduled to meet on October the 30th from 5 to 6. And then our next meeting of the full EAG is scheduled for November 13th. So we will look forward to some additional updates. Again, if you have questions from the presentations today, comments, feedback, suggestions, and we're really encouraging you, particularly from a community engagement standpoint, to help us expand our reach to those who would benefit from some of the new programs. Thank you, Megan. She's really good at giving us compliments, so I think we'll keep her. No, we appreciate the positive feedback, and we're open to other constructive feedback as well. So if we could move now to public comment. We have invited those of you who are watching us through the live stream to join us through two methods, either by calling in or using the Zoom link that is on the screen. From a process standpoint, we're providing you with 2 minutes to speak. And we look forward to hearing your comments. So I'm going to turn to our tech folks to see who we might have in the pipeline. Kim, I think that's you. So please let me know if we have anyone join to participate in the public comment.
No one yet, Rose.
Thank you. Thanks, Marco, for your comment. I think the progress that we've seen is substantial. I have a sense, and some of the other folks on the team have a sense of how much work is being undertaken behind the scenes in order to meet these obligations. And you can see from these presentations that significant progress has been made. So thanks again. Each of you, a good rest of your week. Thank you very much. We appreciate you more than you know, and we'll look forward to chatting with you soon.